بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألم تر إلى الملأ من بني إسرائيل من بعد موسى إذ قالوا لنبي لهم ابعث لنا ملكا نقاتل في سبيل الله. Have you not considered the assembly of the children of Israel after the time of Moses, when they said to prophet of theirs, send to us a king and we will fight in the way of Allah? So this story, the background is after Moses and Joshua died, and the children of Israel reverted, after when Sayyidina Musa told them, go to the Holy Land, and they said, no, we're not going to go. And they wandered for 40 years, and then they were able to enter the city. Then they went back to their old habits, and they were kicked out. So Allah sent Amalekites, and their king was Goliath. He sent it on them, and they kicked them out of the land. So another generation grew up, and they claimed they were ready. They were ready to go back and free the Holy Land. So Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala tested them in 4 stages. And Allah will test all of us. Whenever you make a claim, expect that Allah will test the truthfulness of that claim. So Allah tested them in 4 different tests to see how serious they were. فَلَمَّا كُتِبَ عَلَيْهِمُ الْقِتَالُ تَوَلَّوْا إِلَّا قَلِيلًا مِّنْهُمْ وَاللَّهُ عَلِيمٌ بِالظَّالِمِينَ. So the first test, Allah ordered them to fight. And when Allah ordered them to fight, most of them backed away as like, no, let somebody else fight. I'm not willing to risk myself or my children. So the first test filters out the cowards. If you're not courageous enough to fight for your faith, then you're just a number. So the estimates at the time put them at 800,000. And qalilan, let's take 10% as the best estimate, as 10% is the one that remained. So from 800,000, they went down to 80,000 after Allah told them, now, you need to fight. The second, they wanted somebody else to sacrifice. They were cowards. They did not want to put a skin in the game. So the first test, it filtered out the negative personalities, the cowards. Now comes the second test. They were fighting for leadership. Send us a king. And they were telling their prophet, as the verse says, send us a king and we'll fight with him. You're the leadership of the tribes. You need a king. It's like nobody wanted to step up and say, I will lead the believers, in the fight, because they knew whoever is going to nominate themselves, they're going to put a big target on their back, and Goliath is going to have their way with them. They wanted somebody else to come in. They were waiting for Al-Mahdi to come and liberate them. So that was the test of commitment, to filter out the selfish people. So from 80,000, only 8,000 began. Out of that, only a small part of them remained. So these were uncommitted, and Allah filtered them out. Then the third test was filtering out the ones with the weak will. And we know the verse that their king, the Talut, Saul, he was appointed, he was a commoner, he was from the people. And, the selfish leaders, like, how come somebody from the commoners would be our king? He needs to be from the nobility. But they weren't willing to step up and take that position. So, after Allah told them, nope, that's the person who's going to lead you in battle. So when Talut, he told them, after he prepared them, he said, we're going to cross a river. Whoever drinks from it is not from me. And whoever doesn't eat from it is, and then he is from me, except you get a little thing with your hand. And the verse is very telling. وَمَنْ لَمْ يَطْعَمْهُ. You don't eat water, you drink water. But the weak-willed, what they were doing is they were trying to find tricks. They would take bread, they would soak it in the water, and they would eat the bread to get around that you're only allowed one cupful with your hand of water. That's the only thing. He wanted to test who is a strong will that's going to look at the water and say, I'm not touching you, and keep going. That's who he wanted. So a lot of them failed that test, and once you take a drink of water, you're not going to be able to stop. Then they dropped down to 800. From 800,000, now 800 in the army heading to face Goliath. And then when they فلما جاوزه والذين آمنوا معه قالوا لا طاقة لنا اليوم بجالوت وجنوده. Now that the fourth test, it was the time for battle. And once they saw Jalut and his army, and these people were giants, and they were, once they got hold of you, they would, rip you from limb to limb. So when they saw at the battlefield, they said, we have no power to fight today, because they were undisciplined. And many of them fell back, and only 313 remained with Saul, with the Jalut. And we know the number because the Prophet ﷺ, he said their number was the same number as the people of Badr. And there were only 313 in Badr. So out of 800,000, the army went down to 313 committed people that passed all four tests. And Allah says, فَهَزَمُوهُمْ بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ وَقَتَلَ دَاوُدُ جَالُوتَ وَآتَاهُ اللَّهُ الْمُلْكَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ وَعَلَّمَهُ مِمَّا يَشَاءُ. فَهَزَمُوهُمْ. The fa in Arabic indicates speed. The victory was quick. And we know the story that David took his sling and hit Goliath right in the head and killed him. Allah killed him. But he did it. The battle was done. Once Goliath was dead, the battle was done. فَهَزَمُوهُمْ. They didn't have to fight long. The victory was at hand. So from 800,000 to 313. It's never about numbers. You need committed people. You don't need 100,000 just to have numbers. You need committed people that have aspects of success, to make a change. And that's typical in human history, that change comes from the action of specific individuals that have certain traits. They are brave, they are disciplined, they're strong-willed, they're selfless, and they're committed. When they have all of these characteristics, they make a change. And the prophets, ﷺ, they were all individuals with these characteristics, and they made big changes in human history. So we should self-reflect and ask ourselves, do we have one or more or all, inshallah, all of these characteristics in us? You should ask yourself, am I brave to take the initiative, or do I wait for others to take the initiative and then I just go along? So that's one characteristic. Are you selfless? To think, you always think of others. You don't think what is important to you, think what's important to the community. And will you contribute if you don't get recognized? Some people only contribute if you mention their name and put it in a plaque somewhere, and this muhsin and this donor and this that. That's not a characteristic. That's not a good characteristic. You do good for good's sake. You don't care if you only care. Allah knows that you did it. That's the only concern that you have. If people know or don't know, it doesn't matter. And are you strong-willed to follow through, or do you stop at the first obstacle? There are people like that. They get excited at the first incident of pushback. They stop and they collapse, and they don't know how to continue. So we have to keep pushing forward, because we have to expect difficulties. And you go through the difficulty, and from one to the other until we achieve success or Allah takes us. That's what brave people do. They don't care how many times they fail. They keep going. They don't stop. And the fourth one is, are we disciplined in life, work? Are we punctual? I mean, that's being punctual. We kind of laugh, about Muslims and Arabs especially. Oh, yeah, you're invited at 8 o'clock, you show up at 10. That is not a laughing matter. Our religion is about punctuality. Time of salat is punctual. Everything about Islam is punctual. So we have to be punctual. We have to get the work done. We have to be reliable. We have to be organized. Because if we don't have these characteristics in our character, we're not going to amount to anything. We're not going to make any change. We're not going to push this faith forward. So changing a personality traits require training and hard work. It doesn't come without putting the effort in. And it is in our power. It's in our power to be brave. It's in our power to be disciplined. It's in our power to have all of these good characteristics. And if we don't have all of it, at least we owe it to our children to instill these characteristics in our children. Perhaps they may be able to make a change in their generations and the generations that come after. Walhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum.